of the particular program, and you can try to troubleshoot it, debug it, and create your own logic and make that application work according to you. And after discussing all of these topics, we will be talking about the most widely used platform operating system by the hackers, that is Kali Linux. So that's the straightforward agenda for this webinar. So let's get started. But before we start, the first question which comes to my mind is why we have kept this webinar for you. Why only this topic, cybersecurity? Why not any other topics which is also demand in the market? So let me give you some state points for this. In a nutshell, I'll tell you, nowadays the number of users of internet have increased rapidly. Around the clock, you are using internet anyhow. Either you are using it on your mobile phones, or you are using it on your computers, or you are using any smart device which is connected to internet. So what happens is the more and more users are connected to internet, the more and more data is being transferred, being shared from one to another. And the more and more data is being shared, the more and more vulnerability and loopholes we have, which can be used by the hackers to exploit it and target your vulnerabilities and try to get some outcome of that. And you might be aware that nowadays we have, every second we have a cyber crime happening around the globe anywhere. So somewhere right now, as we're discussing, somebody is targeting somebody's system or server or social media, or might be any XYZ sources. So that is why, since we are so much into use of internet, we are so much connected to the world using internet. And not only internet, if I talk about without internet, also locally through a connection. If you don't talk about internet, if you talk about local connections, also you are sharing the files, you are sharing your data, like for example with Bluetooth connections, okay, with wireless connections, or might be a local LAN connections in your college, in your organization, in your institute. So just to understand the gist of all of these, to understand the crux, here I will be talking about some of the major terminologies and concepts which you should be familiar whenever you are moving towards the world of cybersecurity. And I'm pretty much sure that most of you might have heard these terminologies, but since it's a webinar for the participants from all the semesters, so we will be talking it from the scratch, and we will just talk about some of the most important points. Now, before we start, there is a very hype which is made by the media. So for example, if you say to someone that you are working as a hacker in any organization, or if you are a hacker, simply if you say to someone that you have done a course of hacking, you have a certification of hacker, like for example, I am a CEH certified ethical hacker, and if I share this certification of mine to any one of my colleague or any of my friends or relatives or of my family members, then they make a perception about me. They think that I am a guy who is having a skill set which I can use to hack their mobile phones, or their social media accounts and all those things. So they think of me as a thief who can steal the data, which is exactly wrong. It's a hype made by the media, by the people, by the surrounding, that if a person is a hacker, he's a thief. No. The straightforward answer is, if you are a hacker, that simply means that you have that skill set which you can use to find out the vulnerability of someone. Imagine a situation, you all are from Bangalore, I am sitting from Delhi. If I can hack your, let's take an example, your system, your mobile phone, or any of your accounts sitting in Delhi remotely, how am I able to do that? That means there is some loophole, there is some vulnerability which I am able to find out, and then I'm trying to exploit it. So as a hacker, what you should possess the skill set is, you should be able to find out the vulnerabilities of someone, and that is what makes you a hacker. And after finding out the vulnerabilities, what you are doing with that, what you have intention of in your mind, that decides that which type of hacker you are. So based upon the work you do after finding out the vulnerabilities, based upon the intention what you have when you are looking for the vulnerabilities, that defines you in some special categories of hacker. So you might have come across many categories, but I have taken some of them here which can help you to understand the basic general classification of the hackers based upon the intention, based upon the work they do. For example, if you are doing everything illegal, you are having an intention of stealing somebody's social media credentials, or you are trying to do some financial transactions, bank transactions, or if you are trying to trying to take revenge from someone with that intention, all those things. So these types of hackers, they fall under the category of black hat hackers. So as in our country, not only in country, I should say, black is mostly in some religion, in some culture, we use this black color for as a particular symbol of a demon or something like that. Just not to be criticizing something, but just to take a simple example. So this color symbolizes that if you are doing something which is illegal, not allowed to, you're not authorized for that, that means you are doing something illegal. And that is why you fall under the category of black. Then we have white hat hackers. Again, the same thing I can relate. White symbolizes peace. So if you're doing everything for a goodwill, for a good reason, that means, for example, let's say you found out the vulnerability of your friend. After finding the vulnerability, now you are sharing to your friend and asking him or her to disclose that so that it should not be exposed to the real world, to the outside world, to the hackers. So you are trying to disclose the vulnerabilities, right? So this is actually, you are doing something for a good cause. So that is called white hat hackers. Now, if you're doing both legal as well as illegal things, so you fall under a category of gray hat hackers. For example, when you are hired by any organization, then you have authorized permissions to do some illegal attacks on the website and try to find out the vulnerability, if it is having any vulnerability, so that after finding that particular loophole or vulnerability, you can share it to the management and the higher authorities, and then they can take strict action against that and they can try to close that. Okay. So these type of hackers, they come under the category of gray hat hackers and also called as ethical hackers. So most of the IT expert, those who are working as a security expert, analyst or something, engineers, so they fall under a category of gray hat hackers. Then we have script kiddies. Now, this is very interesting. Script kiddies are those type of hackers, those who don't know anything, but they can do something, they can do many things by using already made tools which are available on the internet. So they just go to Google, or they just go to any search engine, they just go to internet, they download some softwares which they might have heard from XYZ sources, and after downloading those particular tool or software, they start trying to exploit some data, some information. So they don't know the main logic behind that tool, why we use and how it is created. They just start using it and start hacking someone. So they are using scripts which are already made. So they are called script kiddies, just playing with the scripts. Then we have state sponsored hackers. So state sponsored hacker can be a gray hat hacker, it can be a white hat hacker. The only difference is if you are paying someone, you are sponsoring someone, that means that hacker is sponsored by your organization. For example, you're working for a company and company is giving you a salary for that. They're giving you some incentive, they're giving you some specific amount for that particular project. So that means you are being sponsored. Now doesn't matter if you are doing illegal or legal thing, because everything you will be doing under their authorization. So these type of hackers are called state sponsored hackers. You might have heard about events like bug bounty and many events happening around the globe, where big giants like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Amazon, these organizations, they ask the hackers to participate and they pay them in dollars, I should say million and billion dollars, just to expose if their website, if their server is having any vulnerability, so that they should work on it and they will try to close that vulnerability. So we have many events happening every time, and one of the most famous is bug bounty event. And I remember last couple of months back, one of the guy from South India, from India itself, he reported a bug to I think Twitter or something, or Amazon, and then they paid him a very hefty amount of money just to shared that information to them. So these type of hackers, they are called state sponsored hackers. Then we have hacktivists. Now hacktivists are very funny hackers. They don't have any wrong motive or intention. No, they don't want to do some illegal things. They don't want to steal your account details or your financial details or your social media accounts. No, these type of hackers are actually those hackers, those who try to simply disturb the sentiments of people. Like they try to convey their message to the world. For example, they try to disturb the sentiments of two different religion by creating a rivalry between two different people of two different religion, two different political parties, two different countries, and XYZ. So these type of hackers, they simply, for example, recently you might have heard, we were having one of the, uh, there was one news which was trending when there was an elephant which was by mistake, I don't know what was the cause, which was killed in one of the South Indian states. But the political parties of that state were using that particular news as their own benefit. Then what IT experts of that state did was they hacked the website of that particular political parties, and on their home page they started posting their messages that they should not use this type of news for their political cause and for their political benefits. And I remember last year 2019 there even haven't an event happened where neighboring countries hackers, they hacked the Twitter handle of our one of the Bollywood celebrities. And then the hackers from India, what they did was they hacked their website, government website of their country, and then they posted these photos of images of this celebrity on their website, just to convey their message. That's all. So these type of hackers are basically those hackers, those who just try to simply convey their message to the world. They don't have their any wrong intention. No. And they, of course, they try to keep their ideas anonymous. Okay. So these are some general classifications of the hackers. Apart from this, if you will Google, you will find many more hackers, but these are the major classifications which you will see: black, gray, white, script kiddies, sponsored, and hacktivist. Now, the question arises is, how do these hackers, how do they approach you? Now you will ask me that, okay, Anshu, you are telling us about these things, but tell me how an hacker will approach me. How should I be careful? How an hacker starts, approaching a target. So we have a very common terminology, which is very much used in the world of hacking. That's called social engineering. And this is like a very big tool, which is used by the hackers to target their whatever they want to hack. Now social engineering is not a type of tool, it is a type of methodology, I should say. For example, if I say this in simple terminology, if simple words, it is called psychologically playing with the mind of the target. You are trying to psychologically manipulate someone, and using this you can try to access the credentials, you can spy someone, you can do fraud transactions, you can get the passwords of someone, you can break the security, you can try to manipulate someone, and etc. There are many ways and many examples where we can use that. I will give you very simple examples if most of you can relate that. I remember there is a movie in Hollywood. We have a movie called Now You See Me, where we have four horsemen. So in 2019, I remember the second, the second part of that movie was released. So there are four horsemen who try to show magic to the world. So actually, they are just trying to psychologically manipulate the people. I remember one scene from that movie where those one of the actor was supposed to hack the complete server of the building. So to hack the building server, he wanted to had a physical access to the server, which was not possible until he goes to the premises of that particular building. So what he does, he goes to the building gate, he tries to psychologically manipulate the guard. He says, I lost my, I'm an employee of this company. He shows the fake ID card. Then he says, I forgot my wallet, I forgot my card inside the company, I just need to go grab it and come fast. And he tries to psychologically play with the mind of the guard. Then guard was finally convinced, and then he simply goes inside the building, he plugs the USB, and entire server is gone. So social engineering means it can be done physically, it can be done via telephone, via message, over a call, over social media, over any link. It's just psychologically manipulating the target. And if you are smart enough to psychologically manipulate someone, that means your task becomes very simple and easy. Imagine you met someone stranger on the social media account and you start talking to him or her, and then within a week or within a month or within a couple of months you are having a confidence of him. Now he is your best buddy. Now we are having an upcoming sale. For example, let's say on e-commerce websites like Flipkart and Amazon, we have an upcoming sale. Now he's a best buddy. He trusts you. You're a trustworthy friend for him or her. Now you can, psychologically manipulate him. Try to convince him saying that, hey buddy, I need your credit card, debit card details. I want to do an online shopping. I will return your money. I will return your amount after a certain amount of time period as of now, and giving XYZ reasons. Of course, you will be smart enough to do that because that is what all called social engineering. And once target shares his credentials, then after doing the transactions, you deactivate your account and then you are on a fly. He can't trace you down. So social engineering is one of the major step initially taken by the hackers. Now you guys should be aware that if you are in coming in contact with some unknown person, with some new stranger, if somebody is trying to give you a call, trying to manipulate you, trying to give you any XYZ reasons, you have to be very careful and very cautious. That could be a step towards an exploitation of your information. Now, after getting the information, what next? For example, let's say we have a user to whom I want to target. Let's say his name is Rahul. Now, after getting the information about Rahul, where he lives, his entire information, okay, like his college name, his likes, dislike, friend circle, his routine, what he is interested into, okay, everything. So after gathering his information, what next? What hackers will do? So next, hackers try to use an approach. Out of that, one of the famous approach and most widely used approach is phishing. Now, I hope many of you are aware about phishing. It's trying to replicate the original source to a duplicate source. Now that source can be anything. Phishing does not mean that we are only talking about the websites. No, phishing can be done of a message. Phishing can be done of an image. There are many different ways of doing a phishing. Phishing can be done over a call, over a message. Also, the only thing is we are trying to replicate the original information, original source to a duplicate. If you might have heard about the news last year in Pune, we had an attack on Cosmos Bank where many crores of amount of Indian rupees was transferred to different accounts across the globe, and still the government of India and the bank were not able to trace that where did money go, because the hackers were using an anonymous IP. So they were not able to trace it down. So what they finally came to a conclusion and they gave to media was the bank server of Cosmos Bank was not attacked by the hackers. They only attacked the payment gateway page. So they made a phishing payment gateway page, which was exposed to the customers of that bank. So whenever customers opened that website, instead of redirecting to the original page of that particular web server, they were redirected to this particular phishing page where they were doing their normal transactions, sending account money details from one to another. And they believed that they were able to do it successfully. But on the back end, something else was happening. So neither bank was aware nor the customers. But when they started, withdrawing their amount of money from the bank and they found that bank saying that you don't have money, then this entire thing came up, and then bank was aware that okay, something is going wrong, and then they find out that their payment gateway pay was phished. Because we human beings have a very simple psychology. Imagine if you are doing net banking, then if you're doing of ICIC or SDFC or Axis or any bank, then you are used to see a type of page of a different color, and you are habitual of seeing that page. People are not aware how to identify whether a page is original or fake. I'll show you a very simple example of phishing live, although I'm not allowed to, but let me just show you something. And I want everyone to please analyze this page, and then I want you to give me some answers in the chat box. So let me just open this page for everyone, and then I'm going to share my screen. Just give me a sec. Okay, so here we go. Let me just open my browser. Okay, so I'm going to take an example here to show all of you. And I expect some of you to give me the answers. I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to open my browser. Yeah. So here is one website. I am opening Rediff Mail. It's one of the mail websites. We have Rediff, Gmail, and many more. And I hope many of you might be using this. So I want you guys to analyze this page very carefully. And then drop me an answer in the chat box whether this page is original or fake. If you're saying original, justify your answer with at least 1 or 2 points. If you're saying fake, then also justify your answer with at least 1 or 2 points. Just a small demonstration I want to show all of you, that you should able to analyze yourself, that if a person is trying to do phishing with you, are you capable enough of finding that whether you are being netted as a particular hacker or not. Just try to analyze this page and then drop me an answer in the chat box. Let's see how many of you can do that. And please give a justification for your answer so that I can take up some points and discuss here in the meeting. I hope everybody can see my screen. Okay, so I'm getting some answers. Very good. So Saurabh says it's original since we have an HTTPS protocol. Perfect. But on the other hand, Ninad says there is no padlock in URL. It's a fake. Okay, I got those 2 points. Very good. Others, please analyze this page very carefully. If you want, on your laptop, you can open your browser, open the login page of Rediff Mail, and then try to compare it. I just want you guys to analyze it. Come on, everyone. I want some more answers. We have approximately 87 participants in this meeting. So at least I can expect 10 to 12 answers from the participants here. I have got from 2 participants. That's good. Okay, Rizwan says fake. Rizwan, at least 1 point which you can justify why you are saying it fake. HTTP, it shows HTTPS. Shashank has a very good analysis. He says the logos don't match in the main tab and side it's fake and the logo is of something. Okay. Setu says the logo on the title bar is different, so it is a fake page. Okay. So good to see that you guys are analyzing this page. Okay. So whenever you try to enter your credentials which are confidential for you, you will have to first of all cross verify that page whether it's an original or fake. For example, let me open in a new tab. I'm going to open Rediff Mail again for everyone. Open the same page. Now please try to compare and see what is the difference. This and this. This I opened right in front of you. This I opened before and then shared my screen.
ഈ പേജ് ഒറിജിനൽ ആണോ ഫേക്ക് ആണോ കണ്ടുപിടിക്കാം. ഈ പേജ് ഒറിജിനൽ ആണോ ഫേക്ക് ആണോ കണ്ടുപിടിക്കാൻ പറഞ്ഞു.
So 2 tabs, 2 page, same website, same link. If fake, why? If original, why? So I'm just trying to give you an example of a phishing at a very simple and a very basic level.
സൈബർ സെക്യൂരിറ്റി കൂടി വെബിനാർ
അത് പേജ് ഒറിജിനൽ ആണോ?
I kindly request all the participants to mute your audio.
Thank you, sir, for that input. Okay, so I think we are good with this. Now we can proceed. So let me show you now, guys. So if you see, this is the page which I opened and this is the page which was opened. So let me just enter credentials on both the page. Let's do a hit and try. So first of all, I'm going to hit a username here. Let's take your college name, AGIT @ I'm just taking a random username, Mangalore dot, let's say co.in. And then I'm taking a password as, for example, let's say my name, Anshu Kumar. And now I'm going to hit sign in. Let's see what happens. The page was redirected to the same page. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here. This time I'm going to use different credentials. Let's say I'm going to use the username as coronavirus, the one which has made our life hell. And then I'm going to use password, let's say vaccine, for which we are accepting it to come to make our life to normal. Let's click on sign in. Again, the same thing happened. But this time, if you notice, it says wrong username and password combination. But on this, I was not getting any alert message of this sort. That means something was wrong on this page. Now, what wrong? Let me show you something on the background, what happened. So if you remember, the username and password which I entered on that particular page is now stored into my local system. AGIT @ Mangalore and password Anshu Kumar. Now that means something was definitely wrong on that page. Otherwise, how come anybody stored my credentials into the local system? Now, you can judge it yourself that how many of you were capable enough and were good enough to identify whether the page was original or fake. And this is how the hackers can easily trick you also and can take your credentials. I have shown you locally because I'm not allowed to show it through a particular, any web hosting sites or something like that, because I have certain limitations to follow from Indian government. Of course, all of you have that. But yeah, of course, locally I can show you, and that's what I showed to you right now. So this is what actually happens in phishing. They replicate you an original information that looks original, but is not actually original. It can be just not only a website, it can be any other information source also. For example, it can be a homepage of your application. It can be email, which is trying to share you some personal credentials like your account details, or it can be any message or over a telephonic call also. Now, how you can try to keep yourself safe from the data. So now we're talking about the data security. So one of the most common methodology which we have been using since last many years is an art of encryption and decryption, and that is called steganography. That is when you try to hide one format of data to other format of data, then that falls under the category of steganography. For example, if you are having a text file which you want to hide inside an image file. So let me quickly show you a very simple example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new notepad file here. Okay, I'm going to give it name as, let's say, my file. Okay, and I'm going to open this file and write here, hi, this is file for testing. I'm going to save this and close it. I'm going to take one image. I'm going to download one image now. So let's take images of cakes. I'm feeling a bit hungry, so let's take some cake images and let's just download. The vanilla looks cool. Let's just download this image. I'm going to download this on my desktop and give it a name, to a simple name. Let's say I'll give it a name called cake, and it's .jpg. Looks good. Image downloaded, and that's my image. Now I'm going to show you one very simple and art of encryption and decryption here. So let's say I want to merge this file which is having my information into this image, so that when I share this file to anyone except my receiver, nobody else should be able to view the information. Now if you simply share this text file over an email or over any other sharing information source, then anybody can see the file. But what if you encrypt this image into this and then send it to someone? So there are many ways to do that. I'm going to show you very simple without using any software. Simply, I'm just going to use my command terminal. The files are on the desktop. I'm going to browse to my desktop and I'm just going to use the command copy. I'll take my image name, that is cake.jpg, ask it to merge with my text file name with an extension, of course, and I will, let's say, take another extension which I'm going to make confused to my target. So let's say I'm taking a name as Anshu.mp3. I hope all of you know what is mp3. You can take mp4, you can take exe, you can take jpg, you can take png, any extension which will manipulate any other person who is trying to watch out my message. So when I press enter, it says one file is copied, and you can see I got an mp3 file created on my desktop. Now if I share this file to anyone over an email, over a message on WhatsApp or anything, if person will try to open this, what is this file, the one who has shared, it will use your default media player to play something, but it will say can't play, because of course this is not having any media file. And the same can be done with any extension. Now let's say you send it to me, I will give you a call that, hey Setu, what is this, what you have shared me, I can't see. Then you will tell your receiver how to decode it back. Now you have merged it, you can simply ask him or her to simply open this with any editor he or she is having. For example, Notepad or Notepad++ or VC or Sublime, any editor. The moment he or she opens this, you can see the characters of the image are concatenated with the characters of your text file. So this is the way, you know, there are many ways like this, how you can share your confidential information to someone. And these all techniques comes under the category of steganography. We have many more examples of this which can be explored according to the use case. Now, the same thing, why we keep the data safe. Now, I will ask you one very simple question, and I want all of you guys to think of it after this webinar. Okay, let's say nowadays we are using laptop frequently more than what we were using 5 months back, because now we are doing everything online. So imagine if you are having a system and if you are having any folder which is very much important for you, and you have all of your confidential data in that folder, and you don't want any of your family member except you to access that folder. Now let's say at your home, your family members are using a laptop. Let's say morning you are using, afternoon your dad is using, evening your brother is using, night your sister is using to do the classes and lectures and all those things. Now you don't want that your folder should be accessed by anybody else. Then what are the ways you will do to keep your privacy? I expect some answers that somebody will say, sir, we can hide the folder. Right click, go to properties, just hide the folder. Okay. Somebody will say, sir, we can decrypt it, we can encrypt it by using a BitLocker, and we can put a password on this. We can use folder lockers. Except these two methods, do you have any other way to save your, I should say, to keep your data safe or to maintain your privacy? You are not allowed to move your folder from this system to any other source. For example, you are not allowed to move it on pen drive or hard disk or over cloud because of security reasons. And this happens in the company. When you will work for any organization, when company gives you a laptop, they will disable all the ports of a laptop physically. You won't be able to, you know, access any pen drives in a laptop. They will disable your laptop to upload the files on certain specific cloud platforms. Then how you will keep your data safe and secure? Maintain your privacy. So try to search for some more methods except these two, which are very common nowadays. And why? I will tell you if you are planning to attend the training program, which we will talk about at the end of this webinar. Moving ahead, let's talk about the next topic which we have in this agenda. Very beautiful topic that is called email spoofing. Nowadays, you guys might be receiving many frequent emails from unknown resources asking you to do this and that, to verify your account details, to verify, to reset your passwords, and many things like that. So if you are receiving any email from any unknown sender, or if there is, you know, a sort of any typo error or spelling error, grammatical errors in the you know, type of composition of email, please try to analyze it carefully. Do not receive, do not respond to them, do not download the attachments. Please be very careful, because nowadays these email spoofing, so when I say spoofing, I mean to say you are trying to impersonate someone else. Being Andy, you are sending a mail with the name of John. So you are trying to impersonate your identity as a John, although your name is Andy. So this is called spoofing. Now spoofing can be done via email, that's called email, or it can be done via IP spoofing also. So let's say in your college, you have a certain IP range allocated for your faculty members. for your HODs, for your higher authorities, and certain IP range for the students of first year, for the students of second year, separate. If you try to access which is beyond your IP range, you're not allowed to. Your server will say that request is not allowed. In that case, what you can do is you can spoof your IP to someone else's IP, and then the server will respond to you. That's called IP spoofing. And generally people do it with their public IP addresses. They try to spoof the public IP address so that nobody can trace them, that what they have been doing. Because normally, why do we get an IP address? We get an IP address so that our ISP can trace our activities. That's the simple answer to that. Then we talk about reverse engineering, one of the very interesting method used by the hackers. For example, I'll tell you a very simple example in the terms of day-to-day life. You might be using many softwares which you download for the first time. You always get a trial version of 10 days, 15 days, 1 month, 2 months. And after trial version, the software will ask you to register and to do some specific payment so that you can use it for a lifetime. Now, what hackers do is they don't do any registration. They simply debug the source code, the binary code of that software. They look for the logic, for the conditions, that where developer is checking our condition, the registration information. They try to bypass it, try to jump it, and then use the software free of cost lifetime. That is called reverse engineering. There are many different pros and cons of reverse engineering. Depends again on the use case of how you want to use it. Moving to the next, that is Kali Linux, one of the most widely used operating system. And I hope, being a student of engineering college, most of you are aware about Kali Linux, that what is this machine. And if not, at least you might have heard about Linux operating systems. And you might be using, because I remember I have visited Mangalore frequently, and I have seen that many colleges, I remember a college, St. Joseph College in Mangalore, where their entire servers are running on Ubuntu based machines. So I'm pretty much sure that your college, and if not college, you are recommended to use Ubuntu operating systems because they are open source, more safe and secure as compared to Windows, right? So one of the flavor of Linux is Kali Linux. Kali Linux is actually the most widely used flavors of Linux used by the hackers. Why? Because of many of the reasons. One of the reasons is when you download a complete package of Kali Linux, you get many softwares which are pre-installed and makes your task easy. When you try to install any third-party applications, the dependencies are automatically resolved. And they give you a classification. Like, for example, if you go to applications, they are classifying the applications based upon the type of activity you are doing. For example, you are trying to do information gathering, then go for Dimitri, Maltigo, Nmap, Recon. If you're trying to analyze the vulnerability, go for Nmap or any of the softwares. Okay, email spoofing, wireless attacks, go for AirCrack-NG, try to go for Wi-Fi attacks and all those things. So that's the one of the reason that people use Kali Linux, especially for the penetration testing and for the cybersecurity reasons. Now, there are many other flavors of Linux as well, like you might have heard about Ubuntu, Fedora, CentOS, Red Hat, Debian-based operating systems, and many more. Okay, but the most widely and popular among the beginners and the hackers and the penetration testers is Kali Linux. Now, we also have Parrot operating systems, which are at the advanced version of Kali Linux. Okay, so here most of the things are CLI based, unlike Windows where we have everything on a GUI based. When you talk about Linux operating system, everything comes with a package of command line interface. So if you're opening any software, for example, if I try to open Nmap, simply it will open me on a command line mode. So here my Nmap is open. While in Windows, if I open any software, for example, I have a database software for SQLite, it will give me a dashboard with different menu options which I can navigate through and I can do my stuff. But in Kali Linux and other versions of Linux, most of the things comes with a package of command line interface. For example, SQL map, executing SQL map. You can see if you just scroll up, SQL map started. So here you have the options to customize the features of this application according to your need. And that is why it is called open source and more safe and secure. And that is why hackers recommend and they take advantage of using this. Okay, so this was the operating system which I wanted to give you an idea, which you should start, exploring yourself if you are thinking of diving into the world of cybersecurity. So now I would like to take up your questions ahead, and I will be happy enough to answer them for the next 5 minutes. So I have a question from Dr. Nageshwar. He says that what are the tools available for monitoring IP spoofing? So sir, if I talk about Windows machine, we have many third-party tools like Advanced IP Scanner, okay, and even you can do it from the command line by using NetSH also. If you talk about Linux-based operating system machines, then we have Nmap, we have ZenMap, which we can use to monitor the IP. Now, if you are talking about IP spoofing, then you will have to keep certain, rules and protocols over your incoming packets on your servers. How many of them are labeled? How many of them are unlabeled? Are they from the authentic source or not? Should they be allowed to enter your server or not? So you should be keeping a filter on your DNS level and on your, DMZ perimeter zone, where you can keep all of these firewalls and these actives, which will help you to identify whether the incoming request is going to which port number. Is it going to port number 80 or 443, which are most common ports? If yes, are all the packets allowed to come inside that from any IP, or you want to keep a dedicated IP for that? So these all things should be, kept in mind when we talk about IP spoofing. So we have a question from Ram Krishna. He says, how can we start learning cybersecurity from scratch? Any website or online courses would you like to recommend to us, which is best according to you? So Ram Krishna, let me just tell you something straightforward. So nowadays you have many resources available. If you are planning of doing self-study, I will recommend you to go to YouTube, start watching some lectures which are having good reviews, and try to watch the entire series. Okay, keep your system ready with the virtual machines or dual bootables. Keep an operating system ready with the Linux operating system, because of course, talk about hacking, you are talking about Linux. And if you're talking about, planning about doing payments and then having a guidance, and then looking forward to, start making your career in cybersecurity, then one help which I can tell you right now is this: Harbour Technologies, in association with IIT Hyderabad, is starting an online training program for this cybersecurity, where whatever we have discussed, all of these topics will be covered for sure in a practical exposure. So we will be having 12 to 14 hours of training program, each day 1 or 2 hours, depending upon the time and slot availability of all the participants. The only thing which you have to keep in mind in this training, if you're planning, is 90% of the topic will be practical, of course, and 10% will be theory, because we need basics to understand. The highlights of this training will be, it will be a live practical oriented program. The focus will be on each participant. The trainer will be having more than ample amount of experience to guide you, and whatever softwares like setting up a Kali Linux environment and everything will be shared by the trainers by you. And at the end of the day, the trainer will be guiding you for the advanced courses as well. The only prerequisite which you should fulfill before registering for this training program is you should be having a computer with minimum 4 GB of RAM. Less than 4 GB of RAM, not recommended to enroll for the training, because setting up a virtual box and all of these things will make your system very slow. You should be having operating system Windows at least 7, 8 or 10. Okay, we recommend you to start from Windows. Then of course, good internet connection. Okay, so if you want to enroll for this training, you can directly contact to this Harbour Technologies, Manisha. She's the training coordinator. You can directly call her on this number, or you can ping her on WhatsApp. She will be happy enough to help you guide how to do the registration. So we have a training starting possibly in the 2nd or 3rd week of this month, after getting the ample amount of registrations. So you will have to pay only 999 rupees for this training program, of the entire training program of 14 hours. So after paying this amount of money, you will be confirming your seat. Yes, questions please in the chat box. Avinash says, can you explain honeypot? So Avinash, I will not be going deep, but yeah, I'll give you an idea. So honeypot is like a group of, mechanism where we set up a group of computer security protocols, which we use to detect, to divert, or to counteract the attempts which are made by the hackers who are not authorized to target our servers. So it's like, you know, you are luring the target to come to you and then you are trying to catch him or her. That's called honeypot. It's like a bee, you know, the bees when they create their those from where we get the honey. So we are trying, the hackers, when they try to attack us, we try to, you know, divert them to some other servers, and then we try to trace that from where this IP request came, and then we try to take action against it. That's called honeypot. So if you want to become a hacker, you should start exploring the world of Kali Linux and start using the tools starting from information gathering. That's the first step. First, learn how to do information gathering. After learning how to do information gathering, then you can go for data security. And after that, you can start learning how to exploit the information. And there you will learn tools like SQL injection, Metasploit, and all those things. So Saurabh, I will be answering this question in the training program. Those who want to learn all these things, whatever we have discussed, I will be happy enough to see you guys in the training program. If I will be taking a training, of course, you can please register yourself, contact this person, Manisha. She will be happy and she will guide you to how to register for this training program. So that's all from my end, guys. Thank you so much. I thank this college for giving me the opportunity to share my knowledge on this cybersecurity. And as I can see, a feedback form has been shared in the link. So all of you are requested to please fill that and give your valuable feedback. Feedback is always important, helps us to improve our quality.
Thank you, sir. Actually, we would like to thank from behalf of management, principal, and principal and department HODs for accepting our invitation. To sharing your experiences in the field of the cyber security. So I would like to give a brief introduction of Mr. Anshu Kumar. So Mr. Anshu Kumar is a research engineer, work in the R&D section of Harbor Technologies. Sir has a very good expert in embedded programming, cyber security, and ethical hacking, like Windows hacking, password hacking, steganography, cryptography, sniffing, spoofing, poisoning, and Trojan viruses, and so on. And also he has handled many hardware and software projects in R&D section. And also he has delivered more than 100 workshops and training programs in colleges like National Institute of Technologies and IITs. So we are very happy to have you as a resource person, as a speaker on this domain, sir. We are really thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that introduction.
If any participant has any queries, can throw. If anyone has a question, please, you can put it in the chat window.
So I think we are good with this, sir.
Yeah, so I have one doubt, sir. Like, could you
Yes,
please,
sir, please.
tell me the difference between poisoning and spoofing?
So when we talk about spoofing, then we are actually talking about, we are trying to impersonate something else. We are trying to, let's say, use somebody else, identity.
Okay.
And when we are talking about poisoning, okay, so poisoning is actually, we are talking about sending some messages which is actually not from original source,
Okay.
but it is actually sent from the original without changing your IP. Okay, but we are actually sending it with let's say with a message which is actually sent from some other source. That's a type of poisoning. So we have ARF poisoning, and we have other cache poisoning which are used. So actually this is used to divert the traffic. That's the main intention of the attacker.
Will it be same as a man in the middle?
Yeah, exactly like MITM.
Okay.
When I want to do denial of service attack, no,
Yes.
whether IP spoofing will be useful for doing denial of service attack?
So sorry, whenever you are trying to do a DOS attack or DDoS, of course, it is always recommended to change your IP address. Okay, because if you do it from your original IP, then the target to which you are trying to, attack with the many flood packets, then if they come to know, then they can take action
Anyway,
against your
attacker
original
is
IP.
going to use the spoofed IP address, no?
Yes,
So
yes,
it will not identify the source, right?
yes.
So first thing is actually he has to do IP spoofing, then he can try with the denial of service attack, no?
Yes. The first step will be IP spoofing in that case. Not only in DNS, in any case, like if you're doing MITM or if you're doing SQL, if you're doing Meta, any case, you will have to first of all spoof your IP. You have to hide your identity, and then you can do anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Kumar,
you,
sir.
sir. Thank you,
Okay.
Anthony, sir. Thank
Yeah,
you for sharing your input.
Now
And
I
thank you,
re-
everyone, for giving your time.
Yes, sir. Now I request our Professor Sharana Madam to propose a vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the entire AGIT team, I would like to thank Mr. Anshu Kumar for enlightening us with the resourceful learning session on cybersecurity. I take this opportunity to thank our management, our principal, Dr. Shantarama Raisi, our HOD of CS department, Dr. Anthony PJ, for their constant support. I also like to thank the heads of various departments, faculties, and participants for joining us. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Basappa, sir. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah. And I thank Dr. Nagesh sir also for
Thank you,
attending
sir.
this.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Okay.